Hello everyone, this is Padecker William Sanders, Pukalan Chamandi, Pusaka Fanjung Sanders, and this is a November 2022 special student film. I'm filming this in October because we still have some good weather and I want to get at least the November one filmed before we have to go back inside. So I'm going to cover a couple of different things this month. One of them doesn't necessarily apply to everyone, but sooner or later, hopefully, it'll apply to more than a couple. And I got a question asked for me on sashes, wearing sashes on the art. So, typically, what we do is sashes are worn by people who have attained a teacher status. And in my art, for a teacher, red would be the predominant color, meaning it could be a completely red sash like this, the material-wise, or it could be something that is reddish in nature that has some other little strands in it. It's like a woven one sometimes people use. It could be like, again, it's like a rust red with maybe some little black threads or something through it because it wasn't completely dyed red. That's fine. As long as it gives the impression of red, we're good. There are many ways to tie sashes. There's one particular way that I use that I want to pass on to you. And to tie a sash like that, you need one about twice as long as you normally would think you would need it because it goes around the body twice. This doesn't always work out the first time you do it. I hate to do this on the ground, but it probably is going to have to be that way right now. So normally, and I'm not going to go through a full process, but you want to get it pretty flat before you do this. So when you put it on, it doesn't look like it's all twisted up and, like a rubber band that's twisted in knots. You can not do it so much when you tie it and then just put the front part, open it up so it appears more wide, just looks more professional and better. But anyway, you put it on and wrap it around. That's where it's going to go on the ground in part. And then you see it went around kind of twice, right? So it's around once and I pulled it from the back over. Now you want to start with the right side substantially longer than the left. And you just have to play with this because it's not always right the first time. So you got the right longer than the left. And then you put the left over the right. And you pull it. And you do the same thing again. Put the left over the right. Now you take that in the front part here, see at different angles. You reach through, you grab it, and you pull it up through like that. So you have this kind of a opening here. Now you want to take this so that the part behind is longer than the part in front. See that? So the back one hangs a little bit lower than the one in the front. You can make that a little bit shorter or a lot or however you want to do it. Now this is the part you have to pay careful attention to, although it's real easy. Once you have this hole here, you take both of these and you bring it up through the center like that and just let it fall down naturally. And now look what you got. You got a hole on two sides. And what is that? That's a figure eight. That's the infinity symbol. That's our twisting a lotus. That's our figure eight patterns and all the different ways we do it. So there you go. Most people wouldn't know that's a figure eight pattern, but that's what it is. And that's how you wear your sash. So I hope that helps you. Kind of hard to see how you wind up with this figure eight unless you see it. So remember, right, long, go around twice. Right longer than left. Left over right. Pull it left over right again, pull it up through the middle, get that one big loop, then take both sashes, bring it up through the center, just let it flop down a little bit, and you can kind of pull it a little tight, and you can adjust it somewhat. If this is bigger, this comes up a little bit more. That's your sash. Okay, now we got that out of the way. I guess I'll just leave that there. Even though a little bit further, see, what you want to do is you want to open that up now. See how that gets wider? It's pretty wide actually. It's pretty correct, like that. All right, so I had a question about stretching in the system, and not really so much of a question, but it was a discussion I was having with somebody about stretching. And I promised them I'd go over what I was taught, how I was taught, what my teachers passed on to me, and what I've seen actually happen when this is violated in actual reality in classrooms and teaching classes all over the world. And I've taught in very many countries, by the way. So I'm not giving you, like, I'm not a guy that opened up a school in his hometown and stayed there his whole life and saw like 50 people. So I've taught, just for those of you who don't know, I've taught all over the United States. I'd have to figure out how many states it was, but various places, all the way from the East Coast of Massachusetts down to Florida, in person I'm talking about, back to California, down to Texas, Michigan, many times, Missouri. I'd have to think how many, but all over the place. In addition to that, so I've seen different students and I've seen different experiences and people from different arts. In addition to that, I've taught 15, 16 times in Ireland. I've taught multiple times in England, multiple times in France, multiple times in Brazil, multiple times in Holland, multiple times in Russia. Aside from those places, I've taught in, got to be some others, Portugal, and I'm thinking there's more, but I can't think of it immediately offhand. But anyway, all over the place. And in some of those countries, in various cities from one end of the country to the other. It didn't always happen at the same school. So I've seen literally thousands of students who came from all walks of life, all arts, and brought their experiences to me when I taught this and told me, yeah, you're absolutely correct. This is what happened. And I've seen it happen in person. So the first thing is I was taught was the way you stretch is one way. You do the art. That's how you stretch. You don't do something else to come back and do the art. You don't do another art to do this art. Because I don't care what they are, they're going to have a different idea. No ballistic stretching ever. Like bouncing and trying to, push it through like that. No, that's not good. The idea in stretching is that you get the movement in the art that you're trying to replicate, whatever that may be. And you stretch in a slow-moving manner that action, that angle, that direction, very slightly past where you would actually utilize it for real. So if you have a backhand speed punch, when that hand turns, you'd want to stretch that a little more in that direction. If you have snake, you want to stretch your wrists a little more than they normally go. Not a lot more. I'm not going to take this and go bang, 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 bang. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the art very slowly. I'm going to stretch my fingers out like that in the manner that they would be if I was using snake blows, individual snake blows. So that finger is going to go out. Now, it really only goes like about that far to make the blow. But I'm going to push it just a little bit further and slow until I feel the slightest tinge of uncomfort. The slightest tinge. Stop right there. Don't push through that. Next time you do it, you should feel a little bit less and a little bit less, but you don't make the motion go past that. That'll allow you to have a little extra snap in the blow. The movement will be able to be snapped forward with the whip snap that we do in our art without whipping and tearing anything. But also, it will keep you later in life in the larger joints of your body, mainly like the knees, the shoulders, the hips, from becoming overstretched. Because what happens is when you're younger, you have elasticity, and you can stretch those tendons and those muscles longer than you need them to be. They have the ability to snap back because of that youth and elasticity and collagen on the cells and the way they are when you're younger. At a certain point in time, those tendons that are stretched like that beyond their normal capacity lose the ability to snap back fully to where they should be to keep you structurally in place. That stuff holds you together so you don't fall down like a bowl of jelly. So what happens is, to these people that do these like full splits and exaggerated stretches, work out just fine until they get past middle age and they actually start to do some speed and power in that direction of movement. Oftentimes, things just fall out of place. I've seen people's kneecaps that just went sideways on their own. They're standing there, they're doing something, and boom, they make a twist with their leg, and that kneecap goes boop, and they're screaming in agony, and they fall down. Why did that happen? Oh, I used to do this ballistic stretching. I used to do big stretching. I did this, I did that. Same thing with the hips. Same thing with the shoulders. So just like my teacher said, don't beat your head on bricks. Don't smash your hand in hard objects for your whole life. You will pay for it. If you don't pay for it at that point, you will pay for it internally somewhere else. That energy is gonna come out somewhere. Somewhere in your life, it's gonna manifest, and it's not gonna be pretty, and you're not gonna like it. The stretching is going to be to a point where you are like Gumby. You don't want to be Gumby. You know, I'm still very structurally sound at 71 because I listen to the advice. I don't have any arthritis in my hands. I can hit very hard. There's nothing wrong with I don't have any pains, I don't have any aches, because I listen to these people. So you can take it or leave it, but I'm just telling you how I was taught. So if you're doing monkey postures, I'd stretch that wrist right there a little bit. I put a little tension on it and let it go. And you do this slowly. Snake. I'm stretching my wrists here. But just a little past where I'd use it. And then right away I want to flow into a flowing move so that I still get the idea that energy has to be soft and flowing, even though for a second beforehand I just pushed it beyond its natural limits a little bit. Kicks above the waist that we use, like say the rising snake, don't require a lot of stretching, almost none. What they require is balance. So when I do that, I'm going to do it like that. I'm going to go move around, I'm going to throw it, hold it for a second, move around, hold it for a second. I want the balance. My leg is already used to the movement I need. I've slowly stretched it to a point just past where I need to go, and I bring it back. So my leg I'm not going to throw my hip out, I'm not going to throw my back out, my kneecaps aren't going to go sideways, I'm not going to get structurally unsound. Tiger on the ground, if you note how we do our tiger, no stretching required. You're in a three-point stance. You got a knee down, a toe down or two knees, one hand here and one hand up. You're laying flat on the ground. If you can make your leg go straight, that's all you need. Leg go straight. There's no stretching needed in that. Aside, if you want to bring your knee up, if you can bring your knee up here like this, you can bring your knee up on the ground. Tiger on the ground is fighting on your feet, placed on the level of the ground. So if I can't bring my leg up here like that, if that's all I can do, I'm not going to be able to lay flat on the ground. or in a three-point position, I'm not going to be able to bring that knee up. But if I can bring that knee up here, I can do it down there. I only got one base here. Even when I bring that knee up, I'm going to have, on the ground, I'm going to have the base of my knee in my other hand, so I'm still going to basically have 2 points on the ground, more than I do standing up. When you're laying flat on the ground, like the flat tiger, the ground holds you up. Nothing else holds you up but your ground. If you can stand up, you can roll like that, because it's a straight thing. And again, if you can bring your hands and arms and legs up when you're standing up, you can do it when you lay down. The only thing it's going to require is some strength to get back up again. So you can do you can do some low postures. And even these low postures, I stretch them down and I stretch them up a little bit like that. I go a little bit more, a little bit down, a little bit up. Slow. Everything's slow. So slowly, no pain. You know, if there's no pain, no gain, forget about that saying with this. If you have pain, you're not going to gain. Over the long term, you might gain over the short term, like I explained when you're younger. And if you keep doing that, that short-term gain is going to be a long-term pain. Okay, so let me check my time. I have something else I want to show you. The other thing I want to relate to you is when you're in a fight on the street, you don't have time to warm up. You don't have time to say, oh, wait, I gotta do some side leg stretches. You know, I gotta exercise my back. I mean, unless you're going into a ring and it's a tournament, then you can do that for 10 minutes before you go out to the ring. But if you just get attacked on the street, you got to be able to operate cold. If you do it like I'm teaching you to do, you operate in that range of motion. You don't need to warm up to fight. Everything that you do, I didn't warm up before I came out here. Didn't do anything. So one story once there was a tournament in Pennsylvania, and two of my students wanted to go fight, and they were not advanced students. They were middle level students, and they both went and they signed up for the black belt division because they wanted to fight the best guys they had. And whoever's in charge of the tournament, the referee or whoever's putting it on, said, "Well, you don't have black belts. Where's your black belts?" "Well, we don't wear those." You can't fight in this tournament. You got to have a black belt on." So they went over to a vendor, and they paid him $5, whatever it was, and they each bought 2 black belts. They put the black belts on, and they went, "Oh, okay, you can fight." That's how dumb that was. But that's what they had to do. So they're standing there, and the referee comes out and he goes, "Okay, warm up, stretch now." The other guy's doing all kinds of this, that, and the other thing. My guy's standing there like that. "Don't you want to stretch? God, you got to stretch." He goes, "Okay, I'm ready." The late people go, They showed up the next day in my school. Now, I didn't tell them to go to this. They did this on their own. They just wanted to see what was going on. You know, the young guys, they just wanted to see what happened. They walk into school with 2 big giant trophies. "What are these?" "Oh, we won these in the black belt division. First place." So, there you go. That's what they did. I taught them, don't stretch before you fight. If you want to see what you can really do, that's what you do. Because in reality, you just got to fight. You might be tired. You might be cold. It could be wintertime. Your muscles and everything could be tight because it's freezing cold outside. You got to fight, just like you are. One of the reasons we have the kind of movements that we do, they're natural. This is a great tool. You've seen Matt and Dale talk about it for stretching exercises. Now, not only the limbering ones that you do when you do the regular movements. This is the Grizzly, the brand new monster one. This is over 1,100 grams. This thing, so it's really big. You got to work up to something like this slow. But the point is, if you want to take it for just stretching exercises, see this move here? Now what am I doing? I'm stretching slowly in the natural movement that my hand goes and a little further, but I have something that feels like a living thing in my hand. It's got a coil in the center of it. I can start moving my core, my spine. I can hit with it. And I can turn it so that these strikes are always against tension of some kind. And slowly. This is a stretch. This stretch will help. And it gets you strong at the same time. You've heard it before, I'll say it again. If you don't have the monster bear paw, the grizzly we have here, get one. If you want to exponentially increase your health, your strength, and your ability to hit short blows, be smooth, and super strong, this is the tool that you need. You will not get that with a sword. Swords are great for other things, teaching awareness of where the blade is and all that. That's great, but for the flexibility and the strength and the power, this is the weapon, the tool, however you want to call it, that you need. And these new ones are just fantastic. Even my wrist, I can turn this a little bit like that. See, I'm turning that leather. Boy, that feels good. This feels like a exercise from the inside out, an internal massage. Elbows. Poison hand hitting. It's all here. Okay, I gotta put this back. If you've been watching the DVDs that Matt and Dale have been doing on the student page, you've seen them getting a little creative with the Fan Jung set, adding extra kicks, starting to get explosive power, getting very smooth, being able to change heights, off timing, up and down. These transitionary added implications are exactly what your brain needs to start forming when you practice the art. See, they've gone through the alphabet, so they have the kicking jurus, the seated jurus, Sera de Pak, and now the Fan Jung, and you see all that starting to come out in the movement. They're starting to go into a position and feel a similar range of movements that they could introduce a Sera de Pak move, a seated juru blow, a kicking juru kick. And you start to see all the stuff coming out on the different turns and angles, and that's where your mind needs to go. These are transitionary portions of the art that get you from one place to the next like a stepping stone, and then when you start moving, you start incorporating them at will. That's the natural aspect of the system. Let me repeat that. The natural aspect of the system is for you to take the things that you've been tested on, found proficient at, and insert them while you're doing another portion of the art till you're moving all around in different positions, and in each turn and application you have a different blow, you have a different foot pattern, you want to call it that, or you start one way and go the other way. You work on a triangle, you work on a square, you just start to throw that stuff in there. You get all the different kicks, you throw them at will. And I saw one where Matt used 2 kicks, or sometimes I believe 3 of the kicking drills, and those are, if you do them two at a time, it's called a double kick. And he just started figuring out, well, if I move here, I'll do it. Let's see, that's taking the double kick idea, which is one of our ideas of kicks, double kick, and then putting it in with the Sera de Pak, and 2 different kicks from the kicking jewelers. So you have the idea of a double kick, 2 kicks from the kicking jewelers in the sarab to pop movement. That's all integrated together. That's how you flow and make a fighting system out of it. The animals are an additional thing beyond that, which no one has gotten through yet, but Matt and Dale have started on the snake. And what you're going to find is some of these animals are specifically designed to transition you from one movement to a next. And those ones have, of course, their own application, but their basic job is to pull you from one technique to the other seamlessly so that you can't be understood. And eventually that leads to the Naga, where if you start to see how it works now, the Naga is being able to inject all this stuff when you want to, not in a set pattern, in front of an opponent, so he has no idea what's coming next or what you're doing or what animal you're using, or it's all just good things coming at him from all directions at different times based on your previous training. And that's how the art eventually should look when you're moving around. One more thing I'm going to add this month that I think you'll find interesting. This bug bothered me, no more. Poison bug hand. Is we learned this art in a different way than some people teach it even today in different countries. There are systems that to this day, and I understand why. I understand why it was done both ways, but I want you to get it too. In the old days, you were taught just the movements. What's that for? Forget about it, just do the movements. You know, like the old wax on, wax off, sort of like that. So you were taught these moves, which you had to perfect, without being taught what the fighting application of that was until you showed you could do those moves. There's an advantage to that. You're building a structure that will throw the blows out of really well. And you're kicking out the people who don't want to stick it out. That's basically what it is. They have no interest. They're like, you know, it's like, if you're not doing this, if you come to my, go away. So they wanted to see that you had the interest, the intestinal fortitude, and the ability to be one of the chosen few that could perform these patterns flawlessly. And then they took you aside and said, okay, well, let me show you now. This move is for this, and this plate dance is for that, and on and on and on. When we were taught the art, because it's America, and because the guy who brought it over here didn't figure that people here had the cultural interest to learn it in the pattern movement first. Some people call it a dance. I don't like to call it a dance. Dance to me implies I got a woman in front of me or something, and I'm having a good time. To me, that's dancing. If I'm doing this martially, I don't call it a dance. I call it a pattern. A pattern of power. So anyway, what they did is they taught you the blow first, and then they taught you the pattern. So, like you're doing figure eights, well, that's this. So you learned those, and they go, oh yeah, now do it like that. So you had people who would demonstrate, who would just basically throw blows in the patterns. Now that got you to a fighting stage pretty quick. Only a few people figured out later how to put that all together. So there was a downside to it, but it did get you to be able to fight with the stuff pretty quick. And I recall one time a friend of mine went to the Indonesian embassy. I may have told you this before. I don't know. Indonesian embassy in D.C. Why he picked D.C., I don't know. They weren't from D.C. Maybe they just took a trip there with students. I have no idea why. Or I think maybe now I'm thinking more about it, they knew that embassy had a Penchak Silat class. That was it. They found out somehow that the Indonesian embassy in D.C. had a structured Silat class for people to go to. So he took a couple students with him. I don't know if the Indonesians performed first or not. I wasn't there. But he told me they went out there and they started moving around, and you know, like throwing blows at each other out of these moves, and the guy lost his mind. He goes, "Ah, wait a minute! Oh, that's real fighting. We can't do that here." And he was like, "Oh, you have a very good teacher. He taught you actually how to fight with that right away," because that's what they did. But it was like mind blowing to him that these people were coming in there, because I believe a lot of the people that were there that were learning hadn't learned how to throw any blows yet. And there you see these American guys coming in here, and they're actually fighting with him, right? He was an old student of mine. And so anyway, culturally, there's a difference there. But we have the best of both, because I've learned the patterns. I like the patterns. I see the advantage in doing it. So I teach it together both ways, all at the same time. But you ought to be able to do the patterns. You can't just throw a blow either. You lose. You lose the thread. Is what you lose. You lose what I taught you about before, the ability to tie it all together. You lose that. If you can't patternize a movement, if you can't flow from one thing to the next, hence the von Germ aspects are at a higher level on my system than in the beginning, then you're not going to be able to fight with the art the way it was intended to, and it won't be as effective for you. So I thought I would throw that in. Anyway, that's it for the month. Kind of went over probably something except for tying the sash, I could have spent a whole video on almost every one of those things. But I'm trying to get some of this in here before we have to go back to the inside. Bad weather times of the month. If I'm lucky, I might wait. I think today's the 10th of October. So I think I got another 10 days, 2 weeks, maybe projected pretty good weather. If I do, I'm going to try to get December filmed. So at least I'll have that for you guys outside as well. All right, hope you got something out of it. I'll see you next time.